Hello, and welcome to this brief walk through the history of vodka. I'm Joe McCanta, Global Head of Mixology and Education at Grey Goose Vodka. For over 20 years, I've been fortunate enough to travel the world and learn about all spirits and how to mix with them. But with all my travels, vodka still remains the most exciting spirit to learn about. This is because vodka is the root of all spirits. The inception of every single spirit is vodka. All spirits start off by becoming a beer or wine through fermentation. It's then distilled to what you could consider to be a vodka. Distill in some juniper, and you've got a gin. Age it, ta-da, whiskey. Vodka is also the broadest category of spirits. It can be made from almost anything, anywhere. Vodka is the West's most popular spirit, and we get through 400 million cases, or 90 billion drinks of it a year. But it hasn't always been that way. As recently as the 1930s, vodka was as obscure to most consumers as mezcal is today. The spirit's success has been driven by bartenders who've used it to create numerous iconic cocktails, laying the foundations for the cocktail renaissance we enjoy today. This success has come from vodka's incredible versatility. What other liquid allows you to serve cocktails as varied as a savory Bloody Mary at brunch, a refreshing Moscow Mule after lunch, an iconic martini cocktail as an aperitif, right through to what we're calling the new third course, the espresso martini cocktail. Vodka is unique in its ability to complement so many different kinds of drinks. Unlike certain other spirits, for instance whiskey or tequila, which can sometimes clash with certain flavor profiles. Let's have a look at vodka's incredible history, a history that goes back over 1,100 years, including how our vodka came to be made in France. But what we do know is that vodka was born probably somewhere around the 700s or 800s as something that you drank quickly, without tasting, and primarily for its effect, sometimes even used as a medicine. It was the original conception spirit, laying the foundations for every spirit we know today. Its unique history is really rooted in the Baltic states of Latvia, Estonia and Lithuania, the Nordic states, Belarus, Poland, Russia, and Ukraine. Those are all considered the original home of vodka, with the first vodkas being produced in either Russia in the 9th century or Poland even earlier in the 8th century. That's definitely a dispute we won't dwell on too much, or we may be sat here for another century. Regardless of where vodka originated, it definitely laid the foundations for all the other spirits we know today, such as rum, which was born in the 14th century, whiskey in the 15th century, and tequila and gin, both in the 16th century, and really any other known spirit. In fact, it predates distillation itself. Early vodkas were rough beverages developed by making bitter wines and powerful beers and letting them stand outside overnight in very harsh sub-zero degree winters of Eastern Europe. Because water freezes at a higher temperature than alcohol, the water would rise to the surface and it would freeze. This could be skimmed off, leaving behind a stronger spirit. This was repeated and repeated until a wine reached about the strength of 25 to 35%. Now these spirits were not particularly clean and they were full of impurities. So they were often flavored with fresh fruits, herbs and honey, or anything else that would mask the taste. Even with all of this, you'd still have probably sent it back if you were served it over the bar today. Let's take a look at the beginning of our vodka timeline. It was in 1174 that we find the first record of an actual distillery in the text from the Vyatka Chronicle, and it was said to be in Kilnovsk in Russia. This is important for many reasons, but first and foremost, it is distillation that enabled vodka to reach higher strengths, leading to a liquid much closer to what we now recognize as vodka. In the 1500s, vodka became a spirit of the working class in Poland, due to the fact that unlike brandy and later spirits, vodka could be made cheaply and without investment. So it soon became the spirit of the poor, the peasantry, and the working class. The 1530s are where we begin to see vodka being used for medicinal purposes. You may have heard of vodka being referred to as the water of life, and this stems from an entry in the Novgorod Chronicles, which is the first known indication it was used for these reasons. As has been common throughout history, vodka has often been used for some weird and wonderful practices, and to this day, little known but really useful fact. If you ever come into contact with poison ivy, vodka is perfect to pour over onto the skin, as it removes the urushiol oil, which causes the itch. You can thank me later. In around 1700, give or take, we see the emergence of polugar, or bread wine, sometimes known as historic vodka. Now, the word poligar is believed to have meant half-burnt, derived from the fact that it pretty much could be lit with the strike of a match. Around the same time in Poland, a drink known as gorzalka, from the Polish verb gorzeć, also meaning to burn, becomes popular. It is produced in freezing barrels and is a simple, rich, and toasty spirit made from grains distilled entirely in a copper pot still. These types of spirits would of course often been flavored, usually with honey or spices such as caraway, proving that flavored vodka is not as new as everyone thinks. In the early 1800s, vodka makers looked to find better ways of producing it. They wanted to be able to make more, quicker, and obviously they wanted it to taste better. The solution was refining the distillation and rectification process, which resulted in a more consistent and a much more palatable finished product. This progressive search led to the groundbreaking technological advance of continuous distillation. In 1830, an Irishman by the name of Aeneas Coffey built upon earlier column stills to create a more efficient distillation process with his continuous column still. He called it the Coffey still and patented continuous distillation. Now, continuous distillation brought vodka into a brand new era. It allowed for a greater level of purity as well as higher levels of consistency. Gone were the days of having to start and stop with multiple batches to ensure that the liquids being produced remain the same. The next big development was rectification, which is the cleaning of a spirit. And in 1871, we see the first Polish rectification distillery established. This led us to the emergence of what we would now describe as true vodka. As the quality improved, vodka began to fill an even bigger role in Russian life. But still, it was drunk mainly for effect. The result? A countrywide epidemic of overconsumption, brought about by the increasing availability of cheap, mass-produced vodkas. The money, and just as importantly, the control it gave the government over the Russian people, ensured that the state monopoly continued in various forms, including complete prohibition during World War I, until 1992 and the fall of Gorbachev and the dissolution of the Soviet Union. Political instability in the years preceding the Russian Revolution in 1917 had caused wealthy Russians to start leaving the country, and they took their vodka with them. One such Russian was Vladimir Smirnov, son of Pyotr Smirnov, the founder of Smirnov Vodka. This moment in history paved the way for the next chapter in vodka's story. In 1911, we see the first ever recorded recipe for a vodka cocktail. It appears in a book called Beverages Deluxe from the St. Charles Hotel in New Orleans. Prior to Prohibition, America was the hotbed of cocktails, and nowhere was hotter than New Orleans in the 1900s, a city many believe to be the birthplace of cocktails. This is super important for vodka as it really marks a point where we see our beloved spirit taking hold in the West. For cocktail buffs out there, the very first vodka cocktail printed was actually named the Russian cocktail, and it's a wonderful mixture of vodka and Ruinoy, which is kind of a cordial made from cherry stones. Served frappéd and strained, it is really delicious. That takes us to the end of this part of the timeline, but I did promise to tell you how vodka came to be made in France. Well, fast forward a few decades to 1997, and an entrepreneur named Sidney Frank wanted to create a vodka with incomparable taste. To do this, he turned to the country which he said had the best of everything. The country in question? Well, that's France. It was here he enrolled the help of our cellar master, Francois Thibault, who took his knowledge, experience, and expertise of ingredients and terroir to create Grey Goose vodka. I hope you enjoyed our little history lesson on vodka and have much more of an understanding of where it began, how it developed, and what made it into the drink that we know today. For more videos on vodka, Grey Goose, or even the martini cocktail, keep watching. I'll see you there.